out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek podcast. I am Frank Hernandez, your Pest Geek, here discussing all things pest. We want to remind our audience to join in on the revolution. That's right, join in on the conversation, be part of the society. Pest Geek Podcast Listeners Group on Facebook. And we're on YouTube. We're on the web, pestgeekpodcast.com. Check out there the notes, everything that we put into the podcast. They're all on there. And here is Stephen Van Tassel with today's topic.
Thanks, Frank. Stephen Van Tassel here, wildlife control consultant, bringing you another episode of Living the Wildlife. Hey, I wanted to talk today about dealing with the media. Now, everyone knows that it is a major boost to your company when you are asked to do a story or be interviewed for a story for the media, like a newspaper or television news story. There is nothing that gives your business a pop like that. So I'm not trying to be negative about the media here, so I want you to know that I fully understand how valuable that type of coverage is. What I want to just simply point out for you today is a few things to keep in mind when you're being interviewed by a reporter. A couple of things. Number one, make sure you meet the reporter at a time where you are relaxed and emotionally calm. There is nothing worse than being stressed and frenetic, because when you're under stress with a reporter, bad things can happen. And so you want to be sure you're in a good place emotionally. And so if you need a few minutes of downtime, make sure you take it. Get your head in a good, positive frame before you begin to meet with that reporter. Number two, make sure your appearance is professional. Don't be popping cigarettes while you're dealing with the reporter or being cavalier. Understand that you are going to be reflective. Your impression with that reporter is going to have an impact. And so you want to think of that reporter like a client who is going to be maybe a little more critical of you than maybe your ordinary clients are going to be. So if you have dirty clothes, change. If your breath is bad, fix it. If you're not washed, wash. Make sure you look as presentable as now. Don't go out and get yourself a tuxedo or anything like that. I'm not referring to that. But you need to look like you would want to look for your first client of the day. Comb your hair. Check yourself in the mirror. You may say, well, it's a radio interview. What does it matter? It matters with the attention of the reporter that you're dealing with. So if it's a phone interview, then it really doesn't matter. But there you have to look at your voice. How does your voice sound? That's where that emotional element comes in. So you want to be thinking about putting your best foot forward. Number three, when the reporter calls and asks you for an interview or wants to talk, you should inquire what exactly is the story about. Now, could the reporter lie? Sure, but most reporters are not going to do that. They're going to tell you what the story is about. And then you want to ask them, if you can, what's the angle that they're going for? And so basically you're looking at a situation, black hat, white hat. Black hat means they're doing a critical story on something and they're wanting to throw somebody under the bus, to kind of make this simplistic here. White hat means they're doing a story about that's going to be a feel-good story for the public. So-and-so does animal control because maybe they heard that their neighbor had a bad experience and they want to tell people what the good experience is going to be or what a professional is all about. So you want to find out from them what's the angle of the story. You don't have to answer right away. Now, a lot of reporters are under time pressure, so you want to be able to get their name and their phone number and tell them, hey, can I call you right back? And they'll wait a few minutes. You may want to Google the reporter. Find out, is this person a hatchet person? Is this person the reporter that's always goes to for the feel-good story that always ends all of your newscasts today? Remember, news today is no longer news. It's really a prolonged infomercial. Basically, the news is there to sell commercials. It used to be the other way around, but that's not the case anymore. So a lot of times the news stories are not very hard-hitting anymore. They tend to be a lot more fluff, and when they are hard-hitting, they tend to be incredibly imbalanced. So you want to be sure that you find out what this reporter's angle is going to be about. Learn a little bit about the reporter if you can. And so with the ability to Google today, you want to find out, call them back and say, where would you like to meet? Making sure you're presentable. And if they have a particular story angle that they're doing, maybe they're doing something on gray squirrels, or maybe they're doing it on woodchucks, or maybe it's the overall subject of wildlife control, whatever it is, spend a little bit of time refreshing your memory about certain key facts. They love that, right? You want to come across professional. So if they ask you, how many young does this gray squirrel normally have? You're going to have an answer for that. You may be able to have a little story about an anecdote of one of your experiences that could be funny. Make sure you don't throw any of your clients under the bus. Okay? Don't throw your competitors under the bus. Have that interview be positive when you're talking with them, and be careful of your tone and be careful of the words that you use, because what you're saying is going to get chopped up. So be careful. Is it a good idea to record your interview while you're being interviewed? Certainly it can be a good idea. Make sure you get permission from the person that you're speaking with, that you're going to be recording it. Some states require that, other states don't. You have to find out if your state is a dual consent state or a single one-party consent state. Not all states require dual consent. That means from both people talking. Some states only require one person to give consent. Sometimes it depends on who calls who, if memory serves. So sometimes if you can record someone that has called you, but you may not be able to record someone that you've called without their permission. So you want to make sure you get that worked out. Nevertheless, if you don't want to bother with that, let the person know that you're recording it. It's good practice. Means that you're going to be above board. And so why would you want to do that? In case someone says you said X and they may have cut the clip at the wrong place. There was once an ad on television, I believe, if memory serves, it was Mercedes-Benz, not sure. But what happened was there was an accident that occurred. The way the commercial went on, it was trying to show how maneuverable the Mercedes was and how safe it was. They were kind of going on that safe angle, and they avoided a collision. But the other vehicle was in the collision. I think it hit a guardrail or something. It really doesn't matter. But they drove they drove a ways away from the accident scene, and a lot of times the commercial was cut by the network. And there was an outcry because people were saying, why was Mercedes telling people, showing these people leaving an accident scene and not going back to help the people? Well, it turned out that Mercedes didn't have that. They actually had the people going back to the scene. They were saying, well, we should go back and do it. And that's where the commercial ended. But when the network was doing it to save time, they cut that portion of the commercial off. So there was an example of where there was an outcry about something that Mercedes-Benz did, but they didn't do that. And so it was all in how it was being chopped at the network level. So those sorts of things can happen to you, and sometimes they're malicious, sometimes they're not. You have to kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So be careful how you phrase things. Think about your message. So you want to find out, are you going to be the story, or are they asking you for background and information because they're dealing with someone else? Be careful what you say. Lastly, we want to be sure that you get your information to them properly. So you want to be able to give them a business card, make sure the information is correct. You can follow up with additional information with them depending on the subject. Try to provide as much positive information to that reporter necessary. They may ask for photographs. If you have them, they may want to take photographs. Be careful what they're photographing, especially if you're at a client's house. You want to be sure that the client's not going to be upset if it's going to be a sort of a negative story or something. Be careful what you say. Language that you want to try to avoid. You want to avoid a more anthropomorphizing animals, babies, mother. You want to talk about animals as a resource. You want to talk about animals being treated appropriately according to the law. Give people what the regulations are, so it's not about you. If they're upset about something, you're saying you are following the law. Explain things. Do not lie. I cannot emphasize that enough. Don't think you're going to stand there and just sort of spout something off and lie about it. That can come back to bite you in a big, big way. You don't have to necessarily say every little thing that you know, but you do need to make sure that you are not providing false information. So you want to be sure you have your story. If you need the person to repeat the question, make sure you understand what the nature of the question is before you begin answering. One of the tactics that reporters will use is they will throw out a question, you will answer it, and then they will just stand there with the mic in your face. Because they're hoping that you're going to want to fill the dead air and provide even more information, things that may go beyond what you should say. Remember, not everyone loves us. This is something I try to get through wildlife control operators' heads. I'm not very successful at doing it, but a lot of people mistakenly think that their customers love them. Your customers do not love you. They treat you as someone who is handling a problem that they are not emotionally capable of handling. And when you're done, they don't want to think about you again. So you want to make sure when you are talking with this reporter that you are not providing additional information that puts your trade practice into a bad light. Things like you don't say leg hold if you're using leg hold. You're using a foot hold. We don't want to catch animals by the leg. We want to catch them by the foot. You want to say things like a conibear trap or a body gripping trap, a trap that may dispatch the animal. Try to avoid things that say the word kill. So these are ways, but don't sugarcoat it. When you say we're removing the animal, they may say remove where? Well, we dispatch the animal according to state regulations. Then they may ask you what the state regulation is. So make sure you know what the next step is, depending if it's a hostile interview or a background interview. So I don't want to make this seem like you have to be on eggshells when you're dealing with a reporter. It's a very positive thing to be interviewed by a reporter because it can be huge for your business. What I'm saying is be careful what you say. Don't treat the experience as cavalier. And remember, the mic is always on, and there is no such thing as off the record. When you are dealing with that reporter, always remember you are on the record, no matter what you say is on the record or off the record. Do not believe them when they say it's off the record. What you say can be put in print, it could be recorded, it can be videotaped. Always, always, always keep that in the back of your mind. Always remember a mic can be hot until you are well out of earshot. So again, not wanting you to be paranoid, I want you to be informed so you don't make the big mistake. Hopefully those are some strategies that will help you be prepared and that you will have a positive experience with the media. They have an important role to play in our society, but you have to be careful. I'm Stephen Van Tassel, Wildlife Control Consultant. Hey, still would love to hear input from you about some topics that you would like. Yes, I haven't forgotten about the squirrel, following up on tree squirrels. I'll be doing a presentation on squirrel control here pretty soon. Just had a couple of things I want to talk about in between. But do drop me a line, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. I'm Stephen Van Tassel for Wildlife Control Consultant. Back to you, Frank.
We hope you have enjoyed this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. Until next time, have a pestacular day.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.